Coming up on Currently, Beth Milligan is here to fill us in on the latest TCAPS news. Plus, Mama Lou's is shaking up the restaurant scene. The TC Philharmonic musicians are unionizing, and a special feature story about aquatic invasives in our lakes and in our rivers. That's all coming up on Currently. Welcome to Currently, where we break down the top local stories shaping our community. I'm your host, Christal Frost, joined as always by Traverse City Ticker's head reporter, Beth Milligan, as we take you behind the headlines and into the stories that matter most. This podcast was recorded on Wednesday, August 12th. The Tigers are 59-60 in the middle of the wild card race for the AL Central. Meanwhile, your Traverse City Pitspitters finished the season with 45-27 overall. Great season, Spits. Support for Currently comes from West Shore Bank. When you choose West Shore Bank, you're not just choosing a bank. You are choosing a partner committed to the well-being of our community. And you can visit them today on 8th Street or at westshorebank.com. Welcome to Beth Milligan, head writer at Traverse City Ticker. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
You have a very good baby doll dress on today.
Oh, thanks.
And I love baby doll dresses. I just want to say that.
It's summer. Tis the season.
Tis the season. Yeah. Summertime is here. And yet here we are talking about back to school TCAPS updates.
That's coming up too. Hate to say it.
It really is. I was talking to kids at the fair this week. And I was like, so your summer's almost over. And every one of them were like, how dare you say that to me right now?
Shh. Shall not name it. Shall not name the return of school.
And I was like, hey guys, but it's true. It's true.
It's coming up. Summer's gone.
TCAP's waiting until after Labor Day, which is their per usual, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So September 8th coming back. But a lot of local schools are coming back before Labor Day in like 2 weeks, maybe a week. It's kind of nuts.
It's hard.
Yeah. It's very hard.
But then comes my favorite time of year as an adult, which is local summer, which I think is September.
Yes.
The tourists kind of head home. The beaches are still nice. Weather's still nice. We kind of start returning back to normal.
Mm-hmm. And
I like
the kids are in
year.
school.
Kids are in school, so you can just go in an afternoon and have a nice quiet beach to yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And yet we have some big news happening with TCAPS, including Central High School being reconstructed, right?
Yeah, so the board met on Monday this week, and a couple things they discussed on the agenda. One was an update on Central High School. So obviously folks know Central Grade School is under construction now on 7th Street, but Central High School is kind of the next big project. Staff had given an update this week, showed some new renderings. Mm-hmm. The board had already last summer kind of approved the general plan for the construction, but now they're getting close to getting a design ready. The price has adjusted. So last summer, and these are just estimates, these always do typically change.
Yeah.
But last summer they had estimated it'd be around $20.2 million. Now the estimate's closer to $25.5. There's several things that are going to be happening at Central High School as part of this project. The one of the main things is I went to Central High School, so I'm very familiar with this, but it was built during a different era.
Yes, it was.
And so it has what Trustee Scott Hardy this week kind of called like a California campus, which is, if you've been to Central High School, the long building with multiple doors. You have the doors off Milligan, to come in near the auditorium. There's the parking lot area where the tennis courts are around the corner by the gyms on Eastern. There's a main office that's off of Milligan, more in the middle. So you can get into the school in all kinds of ways at all different access points.
That's not very safe.
Which in this era, unfortunately, of school shootings being a reality that we have to think about it and heightened security awareness at schools, having 150 doors that go into a building is not ideal anymore.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah, it's just there used to be almost every classroom you could go in, independently from the outside. They've already started changing a lot of that, but the reconstruction, which is going to start next spring, will be, first of all traffic to the school will come in off one new consolidated entrance off Eastern Avenue. So that area by the gyms right now with the big parking lot where all the students park, you will come into the school that way. Everyone will funnel in that way who's coming into the school. The main office will be right there, so they will have eyes on everyone who's coming into the school. The athletic office will be there as another layer of supervision. They're looking at a new bus loop right by that new entrance. And then as you progress into the school, students will be able to progress all the way from that one entrance into, deeper into the bowels of the school where the classrooms and the library and everything
bowels of the school.
Auditorium. It'll be a little bit of a hike, but you can all get there from this entrance. The other major part of the project is changing the gyms up. So they will be demolishing the original 1958 gym there. That was a long process. That had a lot of community feedback. A lot of people were very nostalgic about that gym, really liked it. It's very unique. However, it was built in 1958 and it is not ADA accessible. It's not modernized for today's student needs. So they will be demolishing that. They will be building a new competition gym with 2 regulation courts. So the school will have 3 courts total. And then the auxiliary gym, which people kind of like we call the new and old mall.
Yeah.
Called the new gym.
New gym.
Even though it's also quite old, will be turned into a dedicated wrestling facility.
Oh, wow.
So some of the things that will be happening with the gyms too include, a lot of, and this is why the cost has gone up, a lot of ADA upgrades, accessibility upgrades. There will be, the gym will have kind of a mezzanine area. The seats will now have armchairs and backs. There'll be a walkway for wheelchair viewing. There will be an elevator that is big enough to fit a gurney in it, which is an issue in high school sports. You do sometimes have students who have medical emergencies. In the past, this has been an issue, not being able to get a gurney into the elevator. So they'll be fixing that. So right now, the project is supposed to go out to bid in January or February. Those bids will come back to the board early next year for approval. Construction set to start in April at the end of the winter sports season, and then it will be going through January 2029.
A couple of questions on this. Number one, was the West Middle School campus designed or built right around that time of West Central, I should say not West, but Central High School? Because I remember the original campus for West Middle, when it was just the junior high, was also very open air. And they had like 3 independent buildings for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at the time. And then they had like a main building for like, where you would go to the gym. But it was always, I remember because I went to school at that time and I'm like, why do I have to, bring my coat with me everywhere?
So Central High School, which used to be just Traverse City High School, when there was also one high school, is older. However, West Middle School was built in 1970. So, and that was the same kind of thing where
Still
it was
kind of
just
California.
The Traverse City Junior High until it became West and East. But yes, in that era of the 70s, it just, they... probably fortunately for that time period, they didn't have to worry about the same kind of security issues we have today.
Although, it was kind of annoying to have to, go outside to go to the gym.
I also had to do that in the winter.
That.
I remember, yes.
You remember. It was tough. And the other question about this is wrestling having their own, kind of own gym designated to wrestling. I'm not familiar is wrestling really a big sport at TCAPS right now?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And also because, the wrestling has different needs and the new competition gym that's being built can accommodate most of the other sports. So wrestling has been really constrained in its space. I will say, these plans for Central High took a while to come together. There were a lot of strong feelings from the community about them. There were a lot of staff inputs. And there's also kind of the thing that, the trustees talked about this week, which is sort of kind of just like Central Grade School. Like, we're going to do this once. We're going to spend a lot of money on it, and we want to make sure we do it right. So in the case of Central High, do we spend $5 million more to make sure we can have as many ADA and accessibility amenities as possible for the widest range of community members and students? Yes, we'll probably spend a few million more to do that.
Well, as you know, covering so many of these stories, when you have to go back and in a retroactive way to make something compliant, it's always going to be more expensive. Just do it right.
And that included, even originally of all the different things that they looked at for the high school, they did look at, can we retrofit the 1958 gym because people felt so strongly about it. And it was just so expensive as much, if not, more to retrofit as to rebuild new and be able to customize it exactly what you need.
There's also going to be some big board changes coming up with TCAPS, including the recent resignation of board president Scott Newman-Bale, but also, there's just a lot of moving going on, right? Yeah.
So, just briefly, if someone's interested in serving on the school board, Scott did step down recently. He had been there a long time. Erica Moon-Moore moved into the president's role. This week, they moved some of their board members around. Scott Hardy became the new vice president. Ty Schmidt became the new treasurer. But they still have this vacancy. One of the 7 seats is now empty because Scott is gone. So they are right now, you can go to traversticker.com or you can go to TCAPS, I think it's tcaps.net, and find the information on applying for the school board. They are taking applications right now. You just have to be 18. You have to be a registered voter in the TCAPS district, be a resident of Michigan for at least the last 30 days. You don't have to be a property owner. We do have information about there's a candidate questionnaire to fill out. On August 24th, the board will be meeting at 5 p.m. at the Montessori School to select the next trustee, and they will serve the rest of Scott's term, which will be August 24th through the end of 2028. The only other thing I'll flag about this is that this is coming right in the middle of an election cycle. So 4 of the seats on the board outside of Scott's are up for election at the end of this year. Erica Moonmore is not seeking re-election, but Scott Hardy, Sarah Begaris, and Beth Pack are. And there are also 4 other candidates running for that 4th seat. So there will be a lot of change potentially in the board, depending on who gets reelected or not. One interesting scenario could be some of these people who are running in the fall could also apply for this vacancy. And if they were to be chosen, their names would still be on the ballot because we're past that deadline. And then if they were elected this fall, they would take the full 4-year elected seat. They would have to resign Scott's seat that they were appointed to. And the board would have to go through this process all over again. Yeah. So there was some discussion this week about if you're on the ballot, maybe some trustees felt like, please don't apply and make us go through this again. But they certainly are allowed to. But anyone in the community could, who meets those qualifications could do that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that story. When we come back, we've got some updates, including, plot change in Mama Lou's plans. The TC Philharmonic. We've got some updates on what's happening with their musicians, and a story that Beth wrote for the Northern Express about aquatic invasives. But right now, a quick word for our lead supporter, West Shore Bank. I'm just going to ask you a question. When was the last time that your checking account surprised you, like in a good way? Most checking accounts just sort of, exist. They hold your money. They judge your impulse purchases, and that's about it. West Shore Bank thinks that your checking account should pull a little more of its weight. Their Shoreline High Yield Checking gives you the opportunity to earn more on the money that you're already using every day. Or if you're spending money anyway, and let's be honest, those groceries and that gas not getting any cheaper, their Shoreline Cashback Checking lets you earn cash back on everyday debit card purchases. So both accounts come with that convenient digital banking that West Shore has. It's easy access to your money and the kind of personal service that only comes from a community bank, one that's been serving Northern Michigan for generations. So if your checking account has been doing the bare minimum, maybe it's time for an upgrade. Stop by your local West Shore Bank branch or visit westshorebank.com to learn more. West Shore Bank Community Banking with modern solutions. Terms, conditions, and qualifications apply. Third-party data rates may apply. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. All right, plot switch. Mama Lou's, which this was one of the most read stories for the ticker when Mama Lou's announced that they were going to be changing up what they were doing at that beautiful taco restaurant on Front Street to kind of a more Asian-inspired Happy Cat theme, right? And now, what is happening?
Yeah, so we had run the story in the spring. Adrienne Brunette, one of the co-owners of Mama Lou's, had spoken with me about that the staff there was kind of ready for a change, wanted to try a different kind of restaurant out. So they were planning to, around Cinco de Mayo, they were going to phase out the Mama Lou's concept. They were going to take a couple weeks to redo the inside, and then they were going to reopen as a fast casual Asian restaurant called Happy Cat.
Yes.
As they were planning for that conversion, Adrienne had a pretty serious medical emergency. So she had to put those plans on hold. They weren't in a space to be able to open a new restaurant concept at that time. And while they were on hold, they heard a lot of feedback from both the public and from even some of their own staff who really wanted to keep Mama Lou's. So they had some time to think about it and then started saying, well, is it possible for us to do both?
Yeah.
At the same time, they were looking at that possibility and looking for, okay, if we keep Mama Lou's, where would we put Happy Cat? Amanda Thomas, who owns Identity Brewing over on Union Street with her partner, Josh Thomas, they, industry folks here tend to know each other. It's a small town.
Right.
So they had heard Mama Lou's was looking. The Thomases had been thinking about a change as well. When I spoke to Amanda, she said, Identity Brewing, which is where the dish used to be on Union, she said that it had sort of, they had achieved several of their goals when they started out. They kind of created this community there. They created this safe space. She said, we are making this decision intentionally. We're not being forced to close our doors. We love our customers. She's like, we saw an opportunity to let Adrienne and her team do something cool here, essentially. And we feel like this is the best move for the community. So Identity Brewing's last day open will be September 25th. So folks do have over a month. If you've got, gift cards or you're a fan of the restaurant, one again, there are a couple more times you have a chance to do that. Identity also holds the liquor license for the City Opera House.
Yes.
So they're the ones who do the bar sales for the City Opera House event. The City Opera House recently applied for its own liquor license. And that's a little interesting. It's always traditionally partnered with an outside license holder. And this is now part of the Opera House's long-term sustainability plan is to control their own alcohol revenue. So Identity will be serving at the Opera House until October 1st. And then after that, the Opera House will be running its own liquor program. And Amanda did say that she kind of hinted that they have a plan in mind for another venture in the downtown area. It may not necessarily be a restaurant or hospitality venture, but she did say they have something in the works. So folks who are friends or fans of theirs could see them coming back into downtown at some point in the future. And then in the meantime, the Mama Lou's team will take over the Union Street space in October. They will be making renovations to the building, and then they hope to be open late fall. Adrienne said maybe sometime in November. So we will now have both. We will have Mama Lou's on Front Street and Happy Cat on Union. And the fast casual Asian, she kind of described it as like elevated, like what you would think of like a kind of normal like Chinese or Asian takeout place, but like elevated. So she said, things like drunken noodles, beef and broccoli, spring rolls, pot stickers, bao buns, cucumber salad, things like that. They're going to do their own playful take on a fortune cookie.
Nice.
So that is to come.
That sounds fantastic. I'm glad to know that Identity Brewing, those owners there are looking at something else, because I know a lot of people love that space. But how cool is that? We get to keep the tacos and add some, Happy Cat too.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm very
Folks
excited.
seemed excited about that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So let's move into talking about a story that you covered about the Traverse City Philharmonic musicians that made a big decision to unionize. So let's go there.
Yeah, this will be a big change for TC Phil, formerly the Traverse City Symphony Orchestra. It's we announced that this week on Tuesday, the musicians of the Phil voted overwhelmingly to unionize. This has been in the work for several months. One of the musicians had started talking to the American Federation of Musicians, the AFM, which is kind of the union umbrella. There's the Local 56 is kind of the regional chapter. And so, I have been hearing behind the scenes, talking to some of the musicians at TC Phil, that they were working on this. I think they had some ongoing concerns about a variety of issues, but sort of the resounding feedback I heard was that they really wanted the musicians to have more of a voice with management, that they, when they had concerns or dissatisfactions with certain things, they wanted to feel like they were more strongly represented in those discussions with TC Phil.
And we're not just talking about wages. I mean, just kind of all around discussions, right?
Yeah, I think there were a number of issues, and that's why I would put them under the umbrella of just generally wanting to have a stronger voice at the table to address a variety of concerns. So they did go through this process. They did unionize. So the next step will be for them to work out a collective bargaining agreement. This will be the first collective bargaining agreement for the musicians. We did obtain some correspondence that shows that the kind of union council And the TC Phil leadership are already in discussions about this. The leadership has been notified about the unionization and about this desire to work on a collective bargaining agreement. Right now, the musicians are under what's called a master agreement, which is sort of, they're not employees, they're independent contractors as musicians, but the master agreement sort of outlines the terms of how they'll work with TC Phil. That agreement is coming up for renewal. So that will be the opportunity at which now this union, the AFM Local 56, will be representing the musicians and working out what a new agreement will look like in the future.
All right. This is very common, though, when it comes to orchestras, right? I mean, all the big ones are unionized, if I'm not mistaken. And even, if you're playing in the orchestra at the Detroit Opera, you're probably a union member. So this isn't actually that, this is pretty rare not to be unionized if you're a professional musician. Would that be fair to say?
That's my understanding of the industry as well. It is certainly not uncommon. Again, this is something new for our region and our orchestra. But yeah, I think, from my understanding, at least from what I have heard, the musicians, what their hope with this is that a union agreement will be a little more rigid and strictly enforced than they feel the master agreement has been. So some of them felt like the terms of the master agreement haven't always been honored. And when you have a union and a union agreement, there are repercussions for, not following that contract. So I think they just feel like it will, again, give that sort of teeth behind their voice and what they're looking for with TC Phil.
Well, thank you for that coverage on TC Philharmonic. And we are going to go into talking about a story that you wrote for the Northern Express. And this is really all about the ongoing battle about aquatic invasive species. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick plug for this. And if people go to northernexpress.com, because it's an in-depth feature story. It'll be up for a few more days this weekend before our new issue comes out. It's in this week's issue. But yeah, this was an interesting one to write. I've, written about different types of aquatic invasives for the ticker when they've been found in our local waterways. But this was a chance to kind of get a broader view of our northern Michigan region as a whole. So we looked at things like Eurasian water milfoil, New Zealand mud snail, Didymo, rock snot, as it's popularly called. Rock snot.
Gross.
Really kind of a gross, matty sort of substance that we have, unfortunately, in the Boardman and many other rivers around here now. And then, of course, the big ones for the Great Lakes as a whole, quagga mussels, which are absolutely, blank at the bottom of the Great Lakes, and sea lamprey, which are a major, major challenge for the fishing populations in the Great Lakes, and also the reason why in Traverse City here, for example, we're building fish pass to try to figure out how to keep sea lamprey out of our system. So I talked to a lot of great experts for this story. The kind of goal is to just help people who live in our region know, like, these are the things that are affecting our waterways, which we all, use and rely on in different ways. Here's how to spot them. So if you're out and you see them, you can report them to the DNR or to a local invasive network. We also talked about the ones we call like the next baddies.
Yeah.
The ones that could be coming that are just outside of the Great Lakes, but scientists are keeping an eye on that they really hope won't get into the Great Lakes. And the one kind of takeaway I would leave folks with today, in case they don't get a chance to read the whole story, the main thing I really learned reporting this story is that once an invasive is present, it is very hard to remove.
Yeah, that's what I picked up on in this story too. And so instead of like focusing on eradication, you just have to like focus on long-term management.
Yes, because typically the whole reason a species is invasive is because it doesn't belong in our environment and it doesn't have natural predators.
Right.
So it makes it, they just, like a sea lamprey, nothing really kills it. So they just, proliferate everywhere.
Yeah.
We have with sea lamprey found a good lampricide to kill them. But many of these species, we can't figure out how to kill them, or we can't figure out how to kill them without killing everything else.
Exactly.
And then you really damage
like
the water.
Zebra mussels and quagga mussels.
Right.
And,
you really damage the fishing population of the other species around them. So they're really hard once they're in. So the main thing that we kind of emphasize in the story is that prevention is key. These kind of list of the next baddies, how you can help keep them out. The main thing people always kind of emphasize is clean, drain, dry.
Yeah,
clean
for your boats.
your boats, your waders. the bottom of your kayaks, your fishing gear. Don't move multiple times between waterways in a single day. Give your stuff time to dry out, because a lot of these things are really tiny, like, the snails, like they just get up into your boots. They can cling to them, and then the next time you go in a different river, they deposit there.
Yeah.
So just do your part.
They're little hitchhikers.
They're hitchhikers. They're tenacious, and if we all kind of do our part, we can help keep them out.
Speaking of, I was driving past the Long Lake Fire Station the other day, as you do.
Sure.
And I saw a sign for a boat cleaning station, and I was like, good on ya.
Yes, and that's a big thing too. Like Lake Leelanau for the milfoil has a lot of those. Like if you see those, like just take a few minutes, clean your stuff, and then you'll be doing your part. And that way, if you're a fisherman or a kayak or whatever, you can help, make sure that it stays good for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great story. So glad to see you doing features. Look at that. Multi-talented lady right here. So yeah, lots of stories we covered today. What are we excited about this week?
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things coming up. I think, one thing we both probably have on our radar for the coming week, we could talk a little bit more next week, but because it'll be happening over next weekend too, but TC Food and Wine.
Yes.
So that starts on Wednesday and goes through next Sunday. There's a lot of events that are sold out. It is really popular.
It is.
But there are also plenty that aren't. And I would say from my experience going last year to cover several events, I'm going to go to several this year. Actually took vacation time to go to the festival this year, even though I'm going to be working and covering it as well.
You took vacation to work?
I know. Isn't it funny? Sometimes, going to a food festival isn't really hard work.
Right.
But the grand tasting, which is in the open space, is kind of the key event on Saturday for several hours in the afternoon. You and I went with, our producer Jordan, a bunch of our friends to that last year. And I would say that experience was I was impressed with.
It's very good.
You get to try a lot of food, a lot of beverages. There are cooking demonstrations. We happened to go on a beautiful day last year, so that helped. But if folks are kind of looking for something to get a feel for the festival, like it is a little, I would say probably a little bit of a pricey ticket, but it includes a lot. And it really gives you a feel for kind of all the providers who are there at the festival.
Oh, for sure. And it was so much fun. I think it was so well done. And, on our sister podcast, The Conversation, we spoke with Mickey Graham from TC Tourism about this. And we have an episode coming out to talk about a couple of the other events, including an episode coming out on Monday with Amanda Danielson, who founded Dirt to Wine.
Oh, and also with Stella.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to see how this year they seem to have really honed in on everything that this region has to offer, from food to wine and everything in between. And specifically, one thing that I will plug that is a very pricey ticket, but if you're able to afford it, it's the James Beard dinner.
Yeah, that's going to be spectacular.
Absolutely spectacular. Literal James Beard nominees and winners from across the state who are going to be here cooking for you at the open space.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
And there's all kinds of little things in between, from coffee to, dinner at vineyards and all kinds of things. So yeah, I would definitely, just Google TC Food and Wine, or you can go to the Traverse City Tourism website at traversecity.com, and they have all the info there.
Yeah, so much fun. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited for this weekend. Get my grandbabies overnight.
Aww.
So I'm very excited to have them. We get them every once in a while for overnights, and it's always, you probably remember, if you're a grandparent, you get this. Like, the best thing about being a grandparent is like all the focused attention you have on your grandkids, and then you give them back. Yeah. And you're like, goodbye.
And here you go.
And then you're not the one worrying about like, did I give them too many fruit snacks? No. Because you can never. Yeah. You can never give them too many snacks. If Eli says to me, I want a snack, I say, yeah.
And I do this with nieces and nephews.
You do.
Too. Load them up with sugar.
Yeah.
Give them a bunch of loud toys.
Yeah.
And then drop them off at my sister's
and
house.
You've had your nieces and nephews overnight too.
Yeah.
It is a different thing when you're doing like, okay, we're in it for the whole night.
Yeah.
Like we are hanging out. We're going to like have so much fun. And then in the morning, guess what? Boom.
Yeah. And now it's quiet again.
I know. So I'm really excited about that. That'll cool. be a lot of fun. Anything else you're doing this weekend?
That's it for me.
Oh, wow.
I'm zoned in on TC Food and Wine. So that's my next week, really.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. There's one more event I need to get tickets for that. So I'm going to work on getting that. But very, very excited to do some TC Food and Wine. And then, right after that, though, that's what I was saying to Mickey. They do TC Food and Wine, and then literally like 3 weeks later, they're doing the fireworks championship.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, guys.
They're
slow it down.
Yeah, they've got a lot on their plate.
They have like what? 5 people who work there? That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, they do a great job. And you do a great job. And thank you all for listening so much. Thanks specifically to Beth Milligan and Jordan Anderson, our producer, for another great episode of Currently. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all platforms at crystalfrost.com. You can follow us on social media and subscribe to Currently with Crystal Frost wherever you get your podcasts. Like literally, look at your podcast app on your phone, click it, write in Currently with Crystal Frost, boom, there it is. You can also watch the full show on YouTube and on Facebook, and Currently is a Compass Local podcast produced by Pancake Boy Productions in downtown Traverse City. Big thanks to our lead supporter, West Shore Bank. Start saving today at westshorebank.com. See you next week.